Hello and welcome to The Real Bottom Line, where we interview entrepreneurs about their entrepreneurial journey and things they've learned along the way. My special guest today is Jon Keel. Welcome, Jon.
Wendy, I'm excited to be here with you. Thank you.
I'm thrilled to have you here. I would love to hear, how did you become self-employed, an entrepreneur, and a business owner?
Well, I'm in my third career,
Okay.
and I'm 77 years old.
Oh my
Most people
gosh,
don't
yes.
believe that. But
Nice.
my first job, I went to work for a small company and have a couple engineering degrees, and so I always knew I wanted to sell technical equipment, which I did. And over 23 years, sold $250 million worth of stuff in the
Nice.
water and wastewater treatment equipment industry. Ended up owning and running the business, or it ran me.
Mhm.
More probably, almost lost my family,
Oh, wow. Okay.
but didn't. Got
Mhm.
my head right and my heart right, as I say, and was there 23 years. And after Colleen and my wife and I after I got my stuff together, we decided that I needed to sell that business.
Mm.
Again, I was the owner, had 65 employees, did about 15 million in revenue. And I mean, it was a successful business, still is today. And no job. I'm
Yeah.
sitting there with no job, had some money. And along the way, I'd gone back to Xavier University in Cincinnati through the executive MBA program,
Okay.
and then took every finance course they offered as
Mm.
I had to love finance. But I was on the dean's advisory board, and since I didn't have a job, he said, "Well, why don't you teach?" So I adjuncted in the MBA program for about 5 years. Again, not knowing what I was going to do. January of '97, two students came down out of class one night and said, "What do you know about the internet?" Now, to give you some frame of reference, Wendy, there were 72,000 websites in the world at that time.
Yep.
And I remember saying, "I don't know much, guys, but I have the time." So I took the next 8 to 10 weeks and just went online, dial up,
Yeah.
and just 8 to 10 hours a day and just looked at websites. And I got excited. I said, I love small business. I have a passion for small business because we are the net job creators, I
Mm.
believe, in the world's economy. And I said, if I can learn some of this stuff, I can help small businesses grow.
Yeah.
Got connected with five guys who today are considered grandfathers of online marketing, and paid them a fair amount of money to learn from them. Came back to Cincinnati after about 6 months, thinking I'm gonna knock them dead. And I had zero success for 6 months because I knew how to sell, but I knew nothing about marketing.
Right.
But I got connected with some other people who were really good at that, and over the next 25 years, build a business. And I set four rules for myself. First of all, in between when I didn't know what I was going to do, I said, number one, I'll never have to go somewhere to go to work. Secondly, I will only work with people that I like. Third, I'll have no employees.
Mm.
And fourth, I'll have no receivables. And I've
Yeah.
done all that for 30 plus years now. And over 25 years, built that up to about $1 million a year in recurring revenue.
Hmm.
Worked with 15 or 1,600 clients around the world. And I never talked about online marketing because I discovered early that most small businesses don't want to spend or invest in marketing, but they want the results,
Okay.
which is increased revenue for most of them. And so that was always my focus over 25 years. And things were really going pretty well. And I did a lot of speaking from stage, and even I've been a Zoom user for a long time, well before the pandemic. And March 1st, 2020 hit,
Yep.
the wall, as I call it. I was actually on my way that morning, Wendy, to go over and pick up a $20,000 check from each of two new clients to get them started on a new project. One called at 9 and one called at 9:05 a.m. and said, "Don't bother coming by."
Right. Yep.
2020 was the year of the ostrich in many respects.
Hmm.
So my second career, I basically said, well, the numbers never lie in business. We lie to ourselves, but the numbers never lie, really. And how am I going to pivot? Well, and I'm kind of sliding into the next part in terms of how I got involved in LinkedIn. Was talking with a friend of mine in Toronto one morning, shortly thereafter, and he said, you've been talking about LinkedIn for the last couple of years as a great B2B platform. How's that working? Well, I hadn't done much with it. I talked a good game, and by that time, I had built it up to about 8 or 9,000 connections,
Yep.
doing it all wrong, using automation, doing all kinds of things, which sort of kicked me off the platform. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, how often are you posting on LinkedIn? Because I knew LinkedIn was, I had a sense that LinkedIn, or vision, if you will, that was going to be good. And I said, well, maybe once a month, maybe. I don't know. There was no strategy. And he said, no harm, no foul. How much exposure are your posts getting? And I didn't know.
Yeah.
I never looked at it. I had to go into my LinkedIn account and look, and I said, well, market looks like somewhere between 200 and 500 or 600 views on a post, minimal engagement in terms of likes and comments. And Mark's words were, that sucks. And it didn't hurt my feelings because I didn't know any better.
Yep.
And which is the case with most people on LinkedIn today. And he introduced me to some friends of his in the UK who had developed a white label service product 3 years, 4 years beforehand. That when I spoke with them a couple days later, they said, "Oh, it's magic." I don't remember their exact words, but that's how they came across. This will explode your LinkedIn exposure 300 to 500% and the ensuing engagement. Although I was born at night, not last night. And I've been in business 50 years
Yep.
and I don't believe that kind of stuff. And did nothing now. They gave me access, did nothing for 2 months, a month and a half, 2 months. And one morning, I don't know if I was feeling sorry for myself or what, but I said, well, maybe there's something here. And I used the system. My first post had over 4,000 views on it.
Nice.
That got my attention.
For sure.
And I said, well, maybe there's something here. And I can continue to use the system a couple times a week, 2 or 3 times a week. Finally, I said, there is something here. And I set up a Zoom call with the CEO. And I said, Mike, I've been around a long time. I have a great network. Would love to take this to people that I know. I know I could call them. They'd take my call because we know each other. And he said, well, thanks for asking. He says, I'm going to expand this business through white label partners. And I picked my first 4. One in Australia, one in Spain, one in the UK, and one in the States. People I've worked with for the last 2 or 3 years that I know, like, and trust. My name obviously wasn't on that list, that being our first call. And he said, and my quote, I said, I remember this verbatim. I'm glad for them and I'm glad for you, Mike, but what about me? You never know unless you ask. And he said, well, I've checked you out. You have an excellent reputation in the marketplace. And I've actually talked to 4 or 5 people that know you. And would you be interested in being in the world white label partner number 5?
Nice.
I launched that business a couple months later, profitable right away. Again, but I understand the online world. Although I still found after about a month, Wendy, that people still, they could use the system, but they didn't understand LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Because even back then, I mean, this year, LinkedIn has already made 170 changes to the platform.
Okay.
Some major,
That's for sure.
and many not. But even back then, LinkedIn was making changes. And as good as they are, they do an equally poor job at communicating those changes to the users.
No kidding. So, okay, let's save that for a second. We're going to dig into LinkedIn shortly. What I'd love to hear a little bit. So, in your first business, um, you learned that uh, structuring the business and it to the detriment of your family was not good.
Not good.
So were you working too much, traveling too much, not making enough money? Like, what were the things that were the symptoms of understanding that that wasn't working for you?
I had no relationship with my wife and no relationship with my daughters.
Okay.
And I was typical of, and I see this today a lot, with many guys in their early 40s and maybe women too, but particularly guys. I knew I was important. Just ask me. I had a very high opinion of myself.
Yeah.
Humility was not in my vocabulary.
Gotcha. When did that come, John?
Well, true story. I'm meeting with my priest. I went to the Episcopal Church in Cincinnati, and I went to my priest, and for the first time in my life, I was honest with him in terms of what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never been honest with anybody in my life, including my wife.
Yeah.
I had the shell, and he said,
Veneer of success.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
the right house, belonged the right country club, all the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And Jim said, John, he says, you need professional help. I
Okay.
said, I know, I knew, we
Yeah.
know. And we actually were separated for 3 months. Went through some very, very good, I won't call it counseling, but help in regard. And then it was 5 to 10 years to reconstruct things,
Yes.
which I'd torn down.
Was there a had trust been eroded over that time as well? Probably took
What's
time.
that? What's that word? Trust?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, big time. I mean, I remember when I went to the psychologist that we had, he interviewed me and he says, I'll take your case. He says, quite frankly, he says, you're Academy Award winning material. He says, the reality is you're unfit for human consumption, but I can help you.
Oh my goodness, John.
Oh, I was
So
bad.
that's tough. Like, obviously the carrot of a renewed relationship with your wife and family was big enough for you to go through the pain because that type of work is not easy.
Oh, it was really hard, and it didn't happen overnight. Again, you don't gain 30 or 40 pounds overnight. It takes 10, 20 years, and
Yeah.
it took 10 years.
With regards, how soon in that process did you sell the business? Like, how soon did you realize that that was not something you could shift or change to make it amenable to the situation?
Great question. And what many business, particularly small business people, don't realize, you just don't sell your business.
Yeah.
And you'll generally always maximize the value if you sell to people who are already there because they
Mm.
understand the business.
Yeah.
It took 5 years to put that together.
Okay.
And that was not a fun 5 years because I already knew I was going to leave.
Right.
Uh, but we got through it.
Well, good for you. And I think you're speaking some real truth there. Like, always doing the work along the way to prepare your business for sale, whether you're going to sell or not, I think is a great lesson for most entrepreneurs because obviously along the way you had no intention of selling, but then life circumstances changed and you needed to sell to get an outcome that you were looking for with your family.
The one thing we put into play, and it was from before I was there, because the company was 100 years old, uh, an annual valuation.
Ah, perfect. Yep.
And I actually taught business valuation in grad school and understood that. And so it was just go to what's the formula say? But we
Yep.
did. The best time to know where the fire escape is before there's the fire.
I love that. I might quote you on that one. Uh,
Please.
so that was sold, and then you started an internet business. It feels like to me from that conversation, like you're like an OG internet guy, like you're original. You were in right from the get-go, right from the ground floor.
Uh, a lot of people have come and gone.
I'm curious, just from a perspective, looking backwards 30 years and thinking about that 6 months of when you were going off and learning the internet. Did you see what it could be, like what it is now, or did you ever see that it would be as much as it is now? Do you know what I mean? Like, because it's gone so far.
No,
Yeah.
no. I mean, I wrote the first book on pay-per-click search engines. This is pre-Google,
Yep.
back when you could buy clicks for a penny, 1 to 2 cents per click
Wow.
in the late '90s. And who would have thunk it today?
I know, right?
Just as one
I
example.
can actually remember going in on dial up and in that same time frame. And I always found it like hard to figure out where should I go? What should I be looking at? Right. Whereas now it's like my go-to, it's my Encyclopedia Britannica if I'm not,
Yeah.
if I date myself, right? We can find anything out. And then now with AI, it's even
Oh,
crazy.
my gosh, a whole nother revolution.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. It is the next wave, isn't it? The biggest shift. So, okay, so now you've started a LinkedIn business. Um, who should be on LinkedIn, John? Who should be on it?
It is the number in, not only in my opinion, but in the opinion of many people, the number one business to business platform in the world.
Yeah.
1.1 billion users, adding 400 users every second. And people ask me, well, what social media are you on? I said, one.
Yeah.
And I don't consider LinkedIn social media. It's a business social platform.
Right.
Uh, but my clients are not on Facebook or what are TikTok or Instagram. I don't even have accounts in those.
Yeah.
I do happen to have a Twitter account, but that's only because LinkedIn does not have customer service that you can reach to. You have to go through a Twitter account to
Oh,
access them. But that's the only reason I use it.
okay. Well, that's good to know. So, um, with entrepreneurs, so there's business to business, but we also have entrepreneurs who are selling, so maybe smaller businesses. What are the biggest mistakes they're making right now, John, on LinkedIn when they're using it?
Well, I give a talk. I have a standard talk that I give called the 5 fundamentals
Hmm.
you need to master for success on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Because most businesses have fundamentals that never change.
Hmm.
And LinkedIn's no different. And the first one is have a great profile.
Yeah.
LinkedIn says that 95% of profiles are no good. And their words, my words, they suck. They really are. They're bad.
What makes a good profile?
Understand, again, it's a mentality. That's a good question. It's a mentality that understand that when people come and see your profile, and that's the first thing they'll do. When I find out about a new person, that's where I go. You've got 5 seconds.
Mm. You got 5 seconds. And then they've already judged whether you're a good
Well, they
business,
judge them. Yeah.
whether I want to do business with you. So is that a combination of like our headlines and our picture, that type of stuff?
Yes. To answer your question, I mean, a picture that's you,
Yeah.
uh, a great banner graphic, and there are 7 or 8 other things you can do to affect the above the fold view and look of your profile.
I often feel like there's some subsections, like there's so much to the profile now. What do you think is the most underused tool in that toolbox that people could be using to better?
Well, and LinkedIn's just made a big change within the last 6 months on the featured section and the about section. They've kind of reversed them
Yeah.
on the page. But within the about section, in fact, let me just pull up my profile real fast. I'll do this because I don't try to remember anything, Wendy. But
It
I just
changes.
know where
It's
I know
changing
I
every
know
day. You go look at it. I'm the same way. I have to know the right questions and where to go find the answers, but the answers are changing all the time.
the services section,
Okay.
and I almost think, and I'm not alone in this, that that section is really, although LinkedIn is not a transactional platform, it's a relational platform. LinkedIn is making it easier to sell because of the services section if you do it right.
Okay. So we can
And then,
actually turn it into something, it's almost, it's really becoming a website, isn't it? Like in terms of the functionality and what we can do on the LinkedIn profile.
no question. In fact, if I were starting all over today, I don't know if I'd have a website.
Interesting.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Uh, LinkedIn is so powerful.
Um, so the biggest mistake you're seeing is that people don't have a good profile, and by LinkedIn standards, they're saying like over 90% don't have a good profile. And the other thing I see, or that's kind of my pet peeve, is when I get invitations to connect and I can tell right away that it's some sort of system automation piece, and
Yep.
um whether it's just the standard language they're using, they're not even, you know what I mean? Like, what's
Oh,
the right way and wrong way to start building your profile? And when I say profile, building the people who you connect with and engage with.
I think it's important to know what's your ideal client profile?
Right.
Who
Yep.
are they?
Yep.
And then you can search for them. You can do it for free on LinkedIn.
Yep.
Although if you have a premium or sales navigator account, it's a lot easier, but you can still do it for free. And
Yep.
then you have that list, if you will, of people you aren't connected to, you don't know, and you don't reach out to them right away. But if I just had this conversation last week, guy was saying, well, gosh, I put my list together and half my list has not been active on LinkedIn within the last 30 days. I said, well, you're not going to reach out to them on LinkedIn, are you? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, if you do, they won't see they won't see your message because they're not on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So finding that list, finding the people that are active
Mm.
and check their posts, comment on their posts,
Mhm.
and not nice posts, but some weenie message like that, but
Yeah.
add value. And really, it's no different to me than it was in my selling going way back 30 years, 40 years. Add value first. When
Give
you add
people, yeah,
value first, you're planting seeds.
yeah, yeah. That's amazing. I also feel like within LinkedIn, there are some posts that I find seem to veer off of what I expect to see on LinkedIn. Do you have some guidelines that you provide people that go, here are the boundaries on posts? Like, do you have some rules around that you share?
Well, I just because I do in my, I do this bi-monthly master class where I go through all things LinkedIn. And I said, look, people don't really care what you do. They don't care about your title when your company was founded. They care about one thing, themselves. We all have self-interest at heart.
Yep.
How are you going to help them transform from where they are to where they want to go?
Yeah.
And write and do videos in and around that framework.
Hmm.
And it's not transactional. It's not blam bam, thank you, ma'am. It's not. It's relationships, and relationships take time in the online world, in the offline world.
So in particular, so our LinkedIn is becoming our super big business card, so that if anyone meets you, they're automatically, their first thought is not necessarily go to a website, but go to your LinkedIn profile. Check you out there.
First thing,
So that's why it's so important. Um, what have you seen in terms of return on investment, right? So somebody who takes the time to do the work to get that profile up to date and optimized, like how much time should I give to that activity versus, and then how long does it take before it starts to show that it was worth it?
when I got serious about LinkedIn, I'm going back only 4 years, 4.5 years.
Wow, yeah, yeah.
Uh, I wanted to establish a presence.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew that would take some time, and I've done that. But then I was consistent,
Yes. Okay.
not once a month, but I posted 3 times a week. And my goal is I comment on 10 posts per day. I use some AI to help me do that to save some time. But that's, again, just establishing my credibility and authority as somebody who knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
In my teaching, and I've got a master class later on this afternoon with my members, and one of my subjects is, if you're spending more than 5 hours a week on LinkedIn, you're doing it all wrong.
Oh, okay. Tell me more, John.
Well, I believe you only need to post 3 times a week, 5 if you really are super ambitious. And it shouldn't take you that long to write a post, especially if you're using AI to help you.
Oh, for the post in particular. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
So
on the comment, same on the commenting.
when the direct messaging or the in-mail, like when should I use one versus the other?
Well, in-mail open rates are, I think, less than 5%.
Okay.
And in-mail is really not that effective. Most of the people who use in-mail, I have found, from my personal experience, they're selling me something. And
Yeah.
don't sell to me. Develop a relationship with me first.
Yeah. What does that look like for you, John? How do I know that I'm doing the right things to develop a relationship?
Well, when you're commenting on somebody's post,
Mm-hmm.
are you leading with value? Understand, they don't care what you do.
Right.
They and and I do a lot of training for sales with sales teams, small sales teams, and that's the hardest thing they have to overcome. Is
Yeah.
just, guys, it's a long-term play.
Yeah.
I sold $250 million worth of process equipment over 23 years, and the first five years, I mean, I did okay, but it wasn't great.
Right.
The last 5 was over the moon, but yeah, there are no overnight successes in life.
So patience, consistency, and really, it sounds like really caring about who you're talking to in the sense of, yeah, the providing a value. I want to give you something that will help you. So how
And
many value-based conversations will you have, like through posting on somebody's thing before you reach out and then try and have a conversation or have some sort of conversion event or, what's next?
Great question. I follow what's it called. I follow something called social selling,
Mm-hmm.
and in social selling, I'll comment on somebody's post if I have no connection with them at all, 2 to 3 times over several weeks,
Yeah.
and at some point, and it's adjustable, I will reach out and I'll send a soft connection request.
What's a soft connection request, John?
I've been, as you may have noticed, I've been following you, and I've commented on several of your posts, specifically of this one, that one,
Yeah.
personalizing it. And I think we should be connected. I think there may be some mutual interest for us to be connected.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
And by the way, what I don't do is, oh, and let's go ahead and schedule a call, and here's my Calendly link. No, you don't have permission to do that. You've not earned the right, if you
Okay.
know what I mean.
Earn the right. I like that. Yeah. What, one of the things I think this automation piece might be not always used correctly. Like I'm like, if it sounds like automation, don't say it. And for God's sake, don't send me an email back the minute I say yes. Like even if you wait an hour to 2 hours of the next day, it's still okay. Then I'm more likely to think it's a person than I am an Autobot of some sort.
Yeah, and by the way, LinkedIn is doing a lot to monitor that.
Mm.
I mean, they have a whole team out in California, around the world, I guess, that's automating or
Cutting
finding people who
coming
are
down on the
misusing it.
automation piece. Hmm. So I'm a business owner. What is the number one thing I need to know about LinkedIn that will sway me into using it?
Your clients and potential clients are there.
Mm.
And you can find out within a month if that is true or not, just by
Right.
doing some basic research.
Yeah. Well, that's good. John, what haven't I asked you about LinkedIn or presenting myself in the best possible way on LinkedIn that
It's a
you
great
think
question.
should have
I
talked?
understand there is no easy button. Thank you, Staples.
Yeah.
I've posted about that several times. It's just, it's consistent effort and get better.
Right.
And understand that yeah, I'm a lifelong learner. I've become a lifelong learner. You'll never be able to keep up with LinkedIn. I spend about 10 to 15 hours a week just staying up to date on LinkedIn, but that's all I do.
Yeah.
For most people, you don't need to do that, but just find people that you can follow that you trust.
Mm,
Going back to Johnny Carson's game show in the 50s, who do you trust?
right.
Because you can't trust everybody
Yeah.
out there. And if they say it, I mean, there are 10 people that I follow that I'm close to in the world.
Yep.
That's my posse, I call them.
Yep.
When they say it, it's gospel to me.
I call those people my inner circle, John.
There you go.
That's awesome. Um, well, how can people get a hold of you? I'm assuming it's on LinkedIn. Is it Jon Keel or Jonathan Keel on LinkedIn? How do people get a
Well, that's a great question. If you go to I'm Jon Keel, Jonkeel. But it's important to get your account verified.
Mm,
And in the States, well, I think it's probably the same in Canada. And my profile for 15 years was Jonkeel. And then when I went last year to get my account verified, I needed to have my name on my profile appear as the same on my driver's license and passport, which is James St. John Keel Jr. And
oh,
I
wow.
just, they make the rules, we follow them. And once I made that switch, but I can always tell when I'm getting an automated response when it says James, blah, 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 blah. No, that's not my name.
That's right. If you were paying attention, you'd know. Oh my God, it's almost your tricks. It's your trick switch for people to be able to tell.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. I have loved our conversation, John. It feels like we just started to talk, there's so much to LinkedIn, but definitely it is a tool. But I think the real bottom line here today is um it is a tool. You need to get on and optimize your profile and be consistent. Thank you, John.
This has been fun. I've really enjoyed the time. Thanks for the opportunity to get together and chat with you today, Wendy.
My pleasure, John. My pleasure.